Harvey said go!
Hi, we are the Biofuel Group. I'm Spencer Morse.
I'm Haley West.
I'm Caitlin Mack. So for January goals, we were doing a totally different project than what we were doing now, and that was to construct the hoverboard. Going into it, we had some really good research, but coming out, we had some disappointing data. We experimented with levitating Lego, like little Lego guys, pennies, fish food, just small things like that. But the maximum hold it would take would be 3 grams, and we thought by the ratio of 3 grams per 4 magnets that we use, would get pretty expensive for making a prototype for a hoverboard. So this project wasn't a total bust. If we had more money, we would be able to carry it on. So that's why we had to scratch this project.
So our project now, we want to try to develop a biofuel using algae since it's very easy to grow, very cheap to grow. We've already started, as you can see over there. I'll let Caitlin talk about our setup. But we got this idea just because it is relatively simple. There is one roadblock that will get in our way, but algae is really easy to grow. It's really easy to show results. It feels like we have more to show you now than we did at any other point in the semester, so that's a good feeling. But the concept is we will grow our algae, as you can see in that beautiful little tank, that little fish tank. We want to grow it in large quantities, and then we will harvest it. We actually have to kind of filter the algae from the water, and we're going to be using a French press for that. It works very well. And then once it's been extracted, we need to extract oil out of it. That's how we get the biofuel. And that's where the trouble comes in, because that's an area where researchers are still trying to develop how to do that in a cost-effective manner, because you can do it several different ways. One way is to dry it and then press the biomass almost like an olive oil press. But the problem with that is drying it takes more energy than the actual biofuel would expend, so it's not really a viable option. What we're leaning towards is actually using, it's called the hexane solution method. We use a hexane solution, and then we pour that or mix it with our harvested algae, and then that extracts the oil from the algal cells. And then after that, we need to further refine the oil for use. The problem with that is hexane is a carcinogen, so we're trying to look for alternative solvents that would do the same thing without causing bodily harm to any of us. But the plausibility is very good. We feel very good about this project. Like I said, algae is very simple to grow, but our biggest obstacle will be figuring out how to extract the oil.
Okay, for our algae growing process, we have 3 alternatives downstairs. One, we have a tank with 3 fish in it to provide organic material for the algae. And just like any other plant, algae needs sunlight to grow. So our second option would be this bowl right here. We have a heat lamp and a UV light next to it. And our third option, obviously we don't have it set up yet, but we added CO2 to the mix, which will help with the photosynthesis process. So for this setup, we are having these 3 shelves filled with water bottles with algae, and insert them with tubes of bubbling CO2, and then have the lights hanging down from the first shelf. And while this is growing, we are debating on what method we are using and what we need to purchase for the extraction.
So next month's goals, since we're getting into the final hours of the class, we want to get as much algae production as possible. That's why we are putting it into water bottles and trying to get it to grow as efficiently as possible and as quick a rate as possible. Once we have gotten a large enough quantity of algae to produce a tangible amount of biofuel, because as you can see in the tank, a good amount of water produces a small amount of algae. Once we've gotten enough algae, we will use that method of extraction, which we will have researched and found an efficient way to do that. And then the final stage of our project, if we have time, we want to develop or find a system that can actually run our biofuel, so it can actually power something and show that this is an efficient fuel source. This will work just as effectively as gas.
So some shortcomings we've had is the time of experimentation. You can't just sit down and make algae grow in a day. It takes patience, it takes time. You have to give it certain conditions like we're doing. You have to have multiple setups. And because we got such a late start in the class, it's over halfway through the year, and we're trying to get actual tangible things for our final presentation to our interested audience, and not just, oh hey, here's our concept. We've been kind of rushing and trying to push this project as much as we can. Also, something we've been not so good about is contacts. We have just kind of been sitting in a corner working because we feel like we know what we're doing right now, but we could contact MSU and say, hey, what's a better way to grow? Can you help us? Can you give us any suggestions? Something like that. And I know some of the students' parents also can help us with that. I know a lot of the grow plants and whatnot. Ms. Beck talked to us about that. So other than that, I feel like we're doing pretty good. Thank you for listening. Any questions?